I'm Tim Hurlocker. I'm a director in the operations group for gasoline at Costco Wholesale. Been doing that for 15 years. Been with the company for 22 years. Great place to work. And we're trying something new, and I want to go over it today in some detail as to why we're doing it and how we're doing it and how it'll affect our operations in California. So to start back over, Dirk recapped it a bit, and we have the new regulation going in June 1, and I'm assuming it'll go in June 1. I shouldn't presume too much, but we expect it will, and so we're moving ahead with it. What we're doing is adding tanks and piping to our gas stations throughout the country to add more detergent additive to our fuel, to increase the quality of the fuel. We're calling it Kirkland Signature Clean Power Detergent Additive. It's made by Lubrizol, which is headquartered in near Cleveland, Ohio. It's a major manufacturer of fuel additives. And it's called Ultrazol 9888. That's the MSDS that we submitted with all of our paperwork. It is registered independently with the EPA. Engine testing shows that more detergent is needed to keep engines clean. When the Top Tier initiative first came out in, I think, 2004, it was a voluntary initiative by some of the major automakers that wanted more detergent additive because they felt the federal standard was insufficient. Since 1995, all gasoline sold in the United States must contain a certain amount of detergent additive, and it's a performance-based test. They actually run it through test cars and everything, and that test is getting a bit dated. And as car engines continue to evolve, the manufacturers wanted a more reliable performance out of their more sophisticated engines. So when it first came out, we didn't know if it was marketing or if it was the real thing. So we started doing engine testing of our own using the same labs that the EPA uses, and we wanted to get to the bottom of it. So that process is finished. We are convinced that more detergent additive does help keep the engines clean and the cars run better. And although we don't make mileage claims specifically because there's so many variables with miles per gallon, it stands to reason that cars will get better mileage when their engines remain clean. They also pollute less and perform better, particularly at startup in the morning. So what we're doing is we're going to end up with 5 times the federal standard of detergent additive in our fuel. All gas has to come from the rack with the minimum amount, and so we're adding approximately 4 times that at our stations with the infrastructure I'm going to describe. So again, to recap the benefits, Costco is a little bit different. As a membership club warehouse, it's not just how much money can we make and what will the market bear. We have a trust relationship with our membership. We take a fee for them to shop with us. I'm sure many of you are our members. Thank you, and thank you. So we're always looking for ways to deliver more value for that so people want to continue to be members and more people want to be members and we continue to grow. So it's a little bit different. So we voluntarily are going about this. We're not changing our pricing. We're just going to try to deliver a better product because we've determined that there is a better product available, and that's fuel with more detergent additive. So it keeps the engine clean. And the other concept where we apply Costco's business model to gasoline in this regard is small improvements over time add up to real savings. And sometimes if you buy gas from us, you might think, boy, that's a long line. I'm saving a couple cents a gallon. You know, boy, is that really worth it? Well, for any one transaction, perhaps not. But if you're looking at your total fuel bill over a whole year, perhaps so. And indeed, I think our record shows that people do make that decision. It is worth the effort. And we want to deliver that value consistently over time, and small amounts add up. Just like Costco makes very little money on every dollar of merchandise that we sell a whole lot of merchandise. So we may only make a nickel, but we end up with a real big pile of nickels at the end of the day. And that in turn, in the terms of gasoline, adds up to a significant improvement in the total emissions reductions and the total mileage gain throughout the state. And here's some pictures that show that, yes, indeed, Dirk, we did do our homework. Prior to even beginning the paperwork part of it, we had to make sure that indeed we weren't just buying any hype. And so we did some engine testing where they actually have a test engine. They have it spick and span. They run the test fuels for a prescribed amount of time. In this case, 5,000 miles. It's a standard test. They take the engine apart. They very precisely weigh the different pieces, and we get some good scientific measurements of what the results are. And we sampled fuel all over the country. And this is one example from a sample from Seattle, which was not bad fuel. But after only 5,000 miles, you can see the intake valve on the left has got some appreciable deposits on it. And then we run it another 5,000 miles with the detergent additive, and you get the valve on the right. And you can see that cars that have a lot of deposits currently, when they run the higher detergent blend through their car over time, it cleans up the existing deposits and then keeps them clean. So again, that's a lot of dirty engines that would be cleaned up over time and be running better day after day. The other aspect of engine performance that is affected by detergent additives is the fuel injector. In the upper left there, you see the older injector designs. When injectors first replaced the carburetor, they were just spraying the gas through a little hole there in the middle. And then over time, more holes came into that injector, so that now we're down at the lower right, and you have injector holes so small they're about the diameter of a human hair. And what that does is it atomizes the fuel, so it's got greater surface area and is more instantaneously burned and more completely burned in the cylinder. That means you get more performance out of your car, you get more energy out of the fuel, and that less unburnt fuel goes out through the exhaust system and either into your catalytic converter or into the atmosphere. So mileage and emissions again. And here's another photo of fuel injectors, and you can see that spray pattern, and it's all about maximum surface area at that instant in time when it fills the cylinder and is ignited by the spark plug. So then we have to go out and say, okay, how do we talk to our members about a product that nobody sees, nobody wants to see, nobody wants to smell it, nobody wants it on their shoe? It's you know, it's a sight unseen. And because Costco does enjoy a good trust relationship with our members, they already assume that we're selling the very best product. So that's why we're trying to get this done fast, because we're saying, hey, we've discovered there's an improvement in the product, so we want to deliver it to our members quickly. And that's why we're trying to go all across the state, and that's why we want to get accepted in California as well, where we sell a tremendous amount of fuel. So this is the advertisement we'll put on top of our gas pumps to tell our members. As you know, Costco doesn't do a lot of advertising. We don't take out newspaper ads. We don't have TV ads. I was watching the Super Bowl, and some of those ads were awesome, but we don't do that. We don't spend that money because it's all word of mouth. And so it's a difficult thing for us to communicate, but this is one of the ways that we're attempting to do so in the areas where we've already established this product. Which is, at currently about 150 of our 350 gas stations in the United States, we have this installed. 28 states, we're rolling out as fast as we can. Right now, of course, we're not doing too much construction in the Northeast until spring comes, but we're moving through the country rapidly. We expect to be done by this fall outside of California. And so, obviously, we're about to start being able to submit permits in California, and that's one of the purposes of my presence here, is to let you all know what we're doing, why we're doing it. And so if there's any questions when we submit the permits, we can address them as quickly as we can. The key difference, we first tested some permit applications when we first started the project in San Diego. And at that time we had a manual system where we thought, well, we'll just have the tank and we'll pump it in a can, pour it in the gas tank prior to a delivery. And you know, that was a lot less expensive, a lot less elaborate, but it was a manual process. We weren't happy with it ergonomically. and there were some reservations from other folks that didn't seem like the greatest way. It certainly is a workable way, but we went ahead and designed an automated system, and that is what we're going to be submitting for permit throughout California. Entirely automated. The additive never comes above ground at all, and it's an automatic injection system, which I'll go over. And the key to that is a liquid batch controller. Again, not a new, none of the equipment we're using is new or that innovative. It's just being put together and assembled in a new application. And it starts with this batch controller, which is made in Germany, has German, has the European certifications. It's been working very well. And so our attendant just goes up to the batch controller prior to a delivery, a fuel delivery, keys in the gallons, the tank it's going into, pushes a button, and the additive is injected into the tank prior to the delivery. It's controlled in the fill sump of the gas tank with a solenoid valve, an ASCO solenoid valve, similar it's used in the rack terminals throughout much of the country. And we have a meter that's very precise that meters it in. And the total volume is about 3¼ gallons per California truckload. So we're talking about less than 400 parts per million, which shows that the relative amount of additive that's needed to treat gasoline. And again, that is the 5 times the government requirement level. So you can see it's still a very small amount compared to the total amount of fuel. It's not like ethanol, which is a 10% of the fuel. This is just a very small amount to achieve the results that I showed you with the intake valves. And then it's mixed by the agitation of the fuel delivery. So I just want to run through a few of the key parts that we're using. Again, none of this is new. It's just being assembled in a different way. First is a 1,500-gallon double-wall containment solutions fiberglass tank. There will be a few above-ground storage tanks in a few of our sites, which will then go underground through a transition sump, and then the piping will remain the same as the UST system. But primarily, we're using the UST system. Using the Amaron dual-oil FRP double-wall piping, 3/4 horsepower FE Petro turbine, OPW AST-style overfill prevention drop tube, a diesel mechanical line leak detector made by Franklin, which has been added to LG 113, the ASCO solenoid valve, a Badger oval gear meter, and the Cox flow measurement batch controller I just showed you. And of course, fittings and ball valves for isolating and testing the system, and you'll see some of that. So the additive sump contains both the turbine and the fill. We use Dirk's magic wand here. There's the diesel mechanical line leak detector, which we had third-party tested with Ken Wilcox to make sure it worked with the Ultrazol. There's the tank monitor probe. There's the turbine. This is a filter where we filter the additive, although kind of redundant because it's a closed delivery, and we haven't had any issues at all with contamination in the additive. There's the oval gear meter. And so it just runs through the black iron pipe, through the meter, and out through the piping and to the fill sump. And in the fill sump, this is for each gas tank. You can see there's the ASCO solenoid valve, and these are 3-way ball valves for purging, calibrating, testing, and working on the system so we can isolate it and we don't have to drain the line into a bucket or anything. We can just close it all off and just isolate small portions of the piping for whether it's a filter change or if we have to do any maintenance in the future. We're trying to look ahead. And then we're going into the riser right here with the remote fill drop tube T assembly that's approved by ARB. Now this application of it, we have an application in with ARB, so we're doing that part of our homework also. But again, none of this equipment is new or different. We're just using it differently. And this is just an example of a UST installation up in Linwood, Washington. And we're complete in rolling out clean power throughout Washington. And that's just what it looks like. It's not a very big tank. This is east of the mountains in Washington in a city called Wenatchee. And you can see the Amaron piping going into the fill sumps. It just kind of gives you an idea of the scope of work that's required to put in this automated system below ground and eliminate that manual element that we originally envisioned. And this is an additive delivery up in Federal Way. And since that time, we got realizing that, you know, this is kind of a new deal. We really need to send a signal as to what's in this tank. And so we've chosen this purple color. The additive tank fill lids will be purple. There was actually very few colors left when we went through. And it was between lavender and chartreuse, and we went with the lavender. And it's a milk run kind of additive drop. Again, it's a 1,500 gallon tank, so it's a maximum 1,300 gallons or so that goes in there. And we're delivering it. There's a bunch of distribution centers for it. Ultrazol is made, again, by Lubrizol, which is a big company, and they have a lot of facilities and a good process. I think I'm supposed to wait until the end because of the videotaping for questions, but I'll be happy to entertain them afterwards. Equipment compatibility. That was one of the things we had to address right away, in that the additive is, you know, not any strange new brew. We're just using more of it, but we're storing it in its full concentration on site. So we had to make sure that all the equipment in the path of the additive, both the tank, the piping, and the fittings, was compatible with the product. And so we did that. We went to all the manufacturers. We did all kinds of immersions testings. We've been working on developing this now for a number of years, doing all that homework and making sure that everything indeed didn't react strangely with the 100% additive. Again, we're just doing it slightly differently, so we wanted to make sure that we buttoned down every detail. And then also, working with Laura, we went through with Ken Wilcox and determined that all the leak detection equipment, the Veeder-Root sensors, the mechanical line leak detector, all worked properly with the additive, and all those results are documented and have been submitted to the State Water Resource Control Board. Our application does indeed, as Dirk was saying, comply with the new regulations, where if you get all the manufacturers' confirmations of compatibility and performance, that can go along with the application and demonstrate that this different material is still safe to be stored in conventional underground storage tanks. And that include the resin manufacturers for the manufacture of that FRP tank. We make sure that they all knew exactly what the chemistry was also. And again, the ASCO solenoid valve, the actual electronically controlled mechanism by which the additive is dispensed in the proper amount into each tank, is the same one that is used at existing rack terminals. So we weren't trying to reinvent the wheel with that critical piece of the equation. The other thing was that the additive has a higher viscosity than gasoline. So again, if we're handling it in its own system and delivering it underground through piping, we had to make sure that everything worked over the range of viscosity that would be represented and how much solvent needed to be in that blend to make sure that it would run. And we're running through the winter now in Minnesota and Illinois and all the upper Midwestern states where we've already installed this, and it's working great. So proof's in the pudding, I guess. But we also did our homework here, and this is a graph of the viscosity in centistokes on the left scale and temperature on the right. And you can see that last year, we know through our Veeder-Root consoles that the coldest any of our gas tanks got was 46.7 degrees, and our average is 67.7. So we're right in line with the consistency of diesel fuel generally. There's also no appreciable vapor pressure to the additive, so diesel would be its most similar comparison as far as viscosity and the vapor pressure of it. And one other comment while I'm here, it's Ultrazol 9888, and that's the technical name, the MSDS name. We're calling it Clean Power, and we've used our Kirkland signature private label for it because the end result, it's the additive that is the specialty thing. The gasoline is the commodity we buy on the open market, but the combination does fit into our private label idea that we're delivering as good or better a product than the major brands. And the other thing I'll take a moment to talk about is the whole top tier deal. I need to be very clear, we are not top tier. We can't be top tier per the rules until we're in every gas station we run in the United States. So until we get completely done, we can't even apply to say, yes, we're top tier. Our intention, though, is to go beyond top tier and deliver a little more additive when the amount of additive is determined by our testing as the optimal amount, beyond which the testing showed there was no additional appreciable benefit, but we're going ahead and going right to the point where we think that we're getting maximum benefit and we're delivering that benefit to our members. So the top tier is a lot of times used as shorthand for more detergent additive. It is actually a certification that's run primarily by GM, but it's in a partnership with the major automakers that have subscribed to top tier, which includes Honda and Toyota and Volkswagen and BMW. If I've missed any, I'm sorry, but some major automakers. We think about half the cars in the United States fall under the group of automakers that want more detergent in their gas. So we think there's real merit to it. The other aspect is, we're putting this in right at the time we take the fuel delivery. Does it really mix in? And our tank design at all of our gas stations has the fill at one end and the turbine at the other. We don't have any mid-tank designs. So the gas is mixing with the additive as it goes in, travels the length of the tank, and then we have the turbine taken out at the other end. We needed to make sure that it mixed properly, and so we had to pick our moments. This is a graph up in Seattle, Washington, where the tank did not have Clean Power, and this is the first introduction of our additive into the tank. And you can see it starts out, and we're approximating the additive level by unwashed gums, because additive will show up as an unwashed gums, and when they do the heptane wash as part of the gums test, it just leaves the goo that's left. And the goo is represented by the flat red line, which shows very little goo, which means good things about overall fuel quality. The washed gums test is where you find out the real quality of the fuel, and it usually runs a pretty low level. Not usually that low. We're very pleased with the underlying gas quality. But it starts out in the first few minutes as we go through this graph, it starts out at the amount of additive that typically comes in with all gas per the federal requirement. And then you can see it start to move up. And the gums test it's an ASTM test. It's not exactly accurate, so you can see the dips, but there's a test variability in there also. But it's a good approximation of what the total additive level is. And you can see that by 50 minutes, it had dispersed throughout the fuel. And then we're doing that with every delivery. Then we're going to maintain it up in the 15 to 20 milligram range, which would be the approximate range for the accuracy of that test that assures us that we're getting close to our amount. The amount we're very accurately dispensing into the tank is calibrated to be precisely the right amount. The gums test is just a close approximation of measuring whether indeed that we're hitting that target. So I don't want to make more of the gums test as being the final arbiter of whether we're hitting our 5X claim. That we're hitting through much more sophisticated methods with the precision meter that we're using and the batch controlled solenoid valve that is part of our system. And then monitoring is just, we're monitoring the tank like we would any other. We have TLS 350s at all of our gas stations throughout the country, no exceptions. And we've just added it as tank 4. And so you'll see tank 4 and it's labeled additive. And it's got the liquid sensors that Ken Wilcox certified all work for leak detection, even in the sump it might just be pure additive if there was a leak in there. We haven't had any such leaks, good to know. In addition, all of our Veeder-Root monitors are in turn monitored around the clock by Gilbarco Veeder-Root's fuel monitoring system, their service I mean, where as soon as a Veeder-Root alarm goes off, they're already dispatching a chosen fuel contractor, they're notifying the location. So even though we have excellent people running our gas stations, they aren't there at night. And we just go above and beyond in the sense that we know that even if that person was, sleeping somewhere or had walked off, that somebody's responding the minute a Veeder-Root alarm goes off. And we're real happy with that service. Again, everywhere in the United States we use that. We're already using it throughout California, and we've already worked these additive tanks into that service in the places we've already installed it. And it automatic response, and we choose our service contractors very carefully, and we're reaching out to them. A lot of them are involved with the installations to make sure they understand what we're doing. The other thing in California is the impact on designated operator. Now, historically, we've contracted in the northern part of the state with Bellshire Environmental as our designated operator. In the southern part of the state, we certified our own supervisors as designated operators. And that worked very well because we have very good people, very low turnover. It's unusual in the industry, and we were capitalizing on that. But recently, starting in fact this month, Bellshire is going to be the designated operator for all of our locations, just to give us that uniform consistency, and particularly they have a web platform that's available on the computers in each of our, what we call our data hut, our controller enclosures. So right there on the web is every hazardous materials, every monitoring system document that is needed right there online through that service. And we thought that was worth making the change. Now that said, we have a whole bunch of ICC certified designated operator people now who are still working at our gas stations. So we think personnel-wise, we're as good as anybody in the country at actually running a gas station in compliance with the laws, but also just safely, cleanly, properly to serve our customers best. And we're very proud of those people. And I know some of you might meet them when you go out and inspect a location. We're always interested to hear if somebody's fallen down on the job. We pay a lot of attention to that, but we're very proud of them. I'll let the words speak for themselves there. All the designated operator steps are going to be included in the additive. Bellshire is already fully apprised of what we're doing, why, what it's going to take. And again, it's not reinventing the wheel, just have another spill bucket, another tanks, a little more alarm history as part of that process.